Jason with 3T Stories. John is a retired DUI TPD officer. Correct, John?
Correct.
All right. My question is why did you become a police officer?
It's actually funny. I didn't really, actually never thought about being a police officer growing up. Was never, never even crossed my mind, to be honest. So the way that I became, or even got into that, is I was living with a guy that I went to high school with, and came home one day from work, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to do this thing with TPD, Tampa Police Department, is doing a recruitment for minorities." So I'm looking at him, looking at me, and I'm like, "We're not minorities." He goes, "I don't care, I'm gonna do it anyway." So I was like, "Oh, man, that's kind of cool, police officer. Yeah, that's kind of a cool job." So I kind of got in and started the process, and it went kind of quick at first. I got my first interview, went and did the little skills test, took a written test, and did a first interview. And then it was like stagnant for almost about a year. And I was working at cash and carry warehouse, and to be honest, that was, those jobs where you're like, "I'm tired, man. I just do not want to go to work." Everybody kept asking me, "Hey, what's going on with the police department?" I don't know. I haven't heard anything. And then I was getting ready for work one day, and out of the blue, they called me up. Said, "Hey, we're still doing these things. We saw your applications in. Are you still interested in being an officer?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." So he goes, "Well, we got an academy coming up in 2 weeks, and we got a bunch of stuff that we need to get done. Are you able to do it?" I said, "You just tell me what time and where I got to be, and I'll be there." So that kind of started the ball rolling, did all that stuff. I didn't know if it was, obviously if it doesn't work out, maybe it's not for me. So I tried to work out where if I didn't make it, I could come back and work at cash and carry. But after I got started, I knew it was for me. So 27 years is what I ended up doing.
Holy crap. Now, how long were you a DUI officer?
I started that in I throughout my career, I was, never like on the DUI squad, but we did DUIs. So I've kind of been off and on doing them throughout my career, but once the DUI squad was established, I would find them and, we called them. I became the supervisor in 2016. So I was the supervisor from 2016 till like August of 18. And then I went back to a day shift squad after that. It was near the end of my career.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question I've always wanted to ask you that you told me on the phone the other day. Does the injury on your face as a child have anything to do with you becoming a DUI officer? Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, so to answer the first question is no, it had nothing to do with me becoming a DUI. Because even though I've known what happened and I've known the circumstances behind it, I've never considered myself a victim. I still don't. Even though I know I am, this does not prevent me from doing anything. It's never stopped me from doing anything in my life. So to me, a victim is something where you've had something taken away from you. You don't have, I can't do that anymore or whatever. Or it's affected me in a way where, maybe I had PTSD or something to that effect. I've just never done it. So it never had anything for me doing with that. So, but to tell you the story about that, how that all got started, I was 7 years old. The guy my mom was dating at the time was a chronic alcoholic. I don't ever remember a time that very rarely, where he was not impaired. Very few times where he wasn't drinking. Most of the time he was always drinking. So, and back then, you never said, "Hey, I don't know, I'm not getting in the car with you."
Yeah.
Back then it just wasn't a big thing, and you got in the car. The truck we were in was a 68 GMC stepside. No seat belts.
Yeah,
back then there was no seatbelt law. It just wasn't a thing. Single cab. So I was in the front. My mom was in the middle. I was on the passenger side, and obviously he was driving. So we're going down Highway 60 at about Turkey Creek Road.
It's dark out there back then.
Yeah, and it was during the day.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was during the day because he was going to one of his friends, or I don't think it was family. I'm sure it was one of his friends that we were going to for like a barbecue or something. And so I remember being stopped in the median part where you know, like you're getting ready to make your left-hand turn, so you're waiting in the median to cross over 60, but back then 60 was only, you know, 2 lanes
Yeah.
each way. You know, now it's, you know, actually it might have only been 1 lane back then.
I'm 51, how old are you?
I'll be 53 in
Okay,
December, so we're close to the same.
yeah, 60 was, I remember being 2 lanes.
Yeah, at least that. So, I don't remember, I remember turning, I don't remember the impact. So basically he turned in front of somebody and they basically T-boned us, not directly at my door, but kind of like at the crease of the door in the right front quarter panel is where it hit. So it immediately bent that door open. I got ejected out. Somehow I ended up under the vehicle, basically pinned. I don't know if it was from flat tires or something, but it actually, you know, the engine, they couldn't get me out. So I remember waking up and all I can remember is I kept my eyes closed and I can remember like, and the way I associate it with it, like an analogy is when you're cooking bacon and you hear that and the popping,
Yeah.
that's what I could hear. I could hear and it felt like just like sizzling bacon popping in a frying pan. And I remember my mom's boyfriend at the time. I remember him talking to me and saying, "Hey, listen, we were in an accident. You're under the engine. We're working to get you out." And I was like, "Okay," you know. I was kind of calm, didn't really freak out, and which is I don't know why, but I kept my eyes closed, talking the thing, and thank God I did.
Yeah.
And I associated with God kept my eyes closed. He didn't want me to go blind, but for whatever reason, he thought this was going to improve my life, or that's the direction he wanted me to go. So I kept my eye closed because you can see that the acid, the scar comes like right here at the crease of my eye. So at some point they get me out. I remember waking up in the ambulance. I don't know if we were driving or if we were still at the scene, but I remember waking up and I remember the ambulance, one of the EMTs spraying water.
Trying to cool you off,
Just
baby.
keep spraying the water on me. That's all they kept doing, and telling me that we were, you know, I was out. I was on the way to the hospital. Everything was gonna be all right. After that, I don't remember anything. I remember waking up maybe a week later. So all that time in between there, I'm sure they were doing surgeries and just keeping me sedated or whatever. I don't remember anything. I remember waking up after several surgeries in the hospital.
Oh crap, dude. Well, there's basically a week gap.
Yeah, I don't remember much of it. So, and I was out of school for about 2 months, and I think it was a month that I was actually in the hospital, and then after that I was at home. But after, you know, 2 months, I eventually went back to school. So they did as much as they could. They said, you know, you're still too young. We can't do a whole lot because you're still growing.
Yeah.
So if we do too much to fix it, it may be worse down the road. So they said, once you stop growing, then they can go back and address it. Well, by the time I stopped growing, I was, you know, 18 years old. It's already been 11 years with it. And I was like, now it doesn't bother me. You know, I needed it back when I was in elementary school because, you know,
Kids suck.
Kids suck, bro.
I was a shitty kid.
And you know, when you're in elementary school, and one of the things that they wanted me to do is to try to smooth this out a little bit. So basically, I had to wear a mask. So take a wrestler's mask, you know, the cool ones.
Yeah.
Take all that away, make it flesh colored. And I had to wear this mask to school. You can imagine what kids are saying.
Yeah. That was,
So, and the bullying started. You know, my only recourse at that point was to fight. So of course I'm getting in trouble at school. My mom was always there, you know, and a lady that lived across from my aunt was actually a teacher there. So this started in 2nd grade. So I did, you know, maybe a week or 2 with that mask, and I finally told my mom, I said, look, you just don't understand. These kids are terrible. So I'm not wearing the mask anymore at school. So I'm thinking it's gonna be better. Well, no, because now I got a scar. So that's where it all started with, you know, what do you think? I tell this in high school because I go to high school now for MAD, and I talk to high school students.
oh, that's intense.
Yeah,
Oh.
so what do you think the number one word that they would call me?